Why don't we mix it up this week? Since me and you are just having a little staycation together, like
Yeah.
Jessel and Privet, why don't we start with New York this time?
Okay, yeah, I'm down for that. What did you like about New York?
Um, Jessel is really getting cooked this season, this show really.
Yeah.
Jessel's just getting her ass cooked so bad. I'm kind of enjoying it, but feel bad for her. Like sometimes I put myself in the position of somebody watching the show and being like, time to binge and find out how it turned out. And that must not be great for Jessel, whose like storylines have gone from like you don't fuck your husband to you're privileged, you're boring, you're annoying, to you don't fuck your husband because he's going to Vietnam
Yeah.
for sex tourism. Like she is getting cooked by the show so hard.
Yeah, I really hope that she comes back because I really like her, and I think she's turning into a little bit of a fan favorite too. But yeah, she's definitely like getting the brunt of it, and seems to be rolling with the punches. I One of my highlights from this was the scene that we got between Sai and Jessel at the end, where Sai arrives 20 minutes late and is immediately annoyed that Jessel isn't there. And she like arrives 20 minutes after.
Later, yeah.
Yeah. And Sai is like so pissed off. But when Jessel, first off, I think that the apology that she meant came across very like heartfelt and like it was thoughtful. And Sai just immediately dismisses it with, I don't care. Like,
Yeah, no,
whatever.
I do think that Sai's right that Jessel made a blunder where she's like, I did not intend to draw any comparisons to your life. And also, my uncle was an alcoholic, so that's one thing we have in common. She immediately starts directly comparing her life to Sai's life right after she said that's not what she intended to do. So
Yeah,
I think Sai's got a point to be like a little peeved about that.
I think it was like messy, but not malicious. I don't know.
Mhm.
It for me, it seems like the issue with Jessel and Sai is like Sai is playing the game and Jessel isn't. Like Jessel is. I've said this before on the podcast. She reminds me of like Shannon, who's just like really navigating in a very authentic, true to herself way, not thinking about the meta and being kind of messy as a result of it. And I feel like, Jessel is putting out this story about her uncle being an alcoholic in an effort to connect. Like her motivation is
Yeah.
to connect. Whereas like Sai sharing her story with her mother, Sai is using it as like social currency. She's using like her opening up as like a play. And so the fact that Jessel is putting her story out there and putting it on equal grounds and like trying to use it as like a measure to balance things. Sai is like pissed off because she doesn't think that Jessel's story is as valuable as hers. She doesn't
Yeah.
think that it holds the same value, so it shouldn't be um, it shouldn't be given equal weight. And I think that's what she's really pissed off is that she thinks that Jessel's going to be scoring more points with her story.
Yeah, I think that's more or less right. I think Sai is also extremely defensive of the kind of felt reality of her upbringing because she's somebody who lives in a world of privileged people and she didn't come from that background. So that's something that she really like wants to hold on to as like something that's different and important to her, and that's why she gets like upset when other people try to be like, yeah, me too, if she doesn't think it's valid. So I think she's a little too defensive about that, but I think there are like personal motivations, I guess I'm trying to say, rather than just like playing the game strategy motivations behind the way that she's like defensive about her own story and other people's attempts to compare themselves to her.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also I always just love a scene where a housewife is like made to wait and is pissed off. I especially love the fact that Sai was going to have made Jessel wait for 20 minutes and then was pissed off that she was the one that had to wait 20 minutes.
Right.
Like,
Because she felt that was her right, because she was the one who was invited to dinner, right? She's
yeah.
like, you invited me because you want to apologize to me, so I can show up late and get leverage over you. I get to have leverage in this situation. You don't get to have leverage in this situation because you're supposed to be the apologizing one, the
Yeah.
supplicant.
What other highlights did you have from New York?
Um, do we think that that Pavitt is doing sex tourism?
So I don't think that it's sex tourism, but I do think that it's sketch. Like it's not a you don't just go to Vietnam for miles. Like that's not a thing that people do. Like
Yeah,
you don't actually physically need to take the trip. You don't actually need to board the plane if you just want to buy a ticket to Vietnam and just let it like get the miles for it, right? Why would you need to do that?
yeah. I kind of like Pavitt, so I don't necessarily want that to be the case, but I think sex tourism makes more sense than like I wanted to buy a banh mi. And definitely more sense than, like you said, I wanted the miles. Like, what other motivations does he have here? Like, what else is he doing? Like, for just like a one fly in, fly out.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I've been to Vietnam. It's amazing. You can go to Hoi An, which is an amazing city there. I think everyone should go and visit it. They've got like beautiful lanterns and all lining the streets, and but they're known for their tailoring, and you can get like a custom fitted suit made like very cheaply there. So why not just go there and get a bunch of like suits made and say like that's why you're going. That seems like a reasonable reason to just
Sure.
go for a bit.
Yeah, if he's looking for cover, he should bring stuff back with him. In some
Yeah.
sense, like just like bring like some kind of, I don't know, dried herbs or something, and be like, you can only get this in Vietnam. I need these for my spicy chicken waffles, and
Yeah.
this is the only place I could get them. Which, by the way, when Jessa was getting a little angry at Pavitt in the restaurant, being like, "You asked for hot sauce," and she's like, "This is a fancy French restaurant. Well, why do they have chicken waffles on the
Yeah.
menu if they're a fancy French restaurant?" I'm not sure.
Yeah, and so do you put hot sauce on your chicken waffles? That's never something that I've done.
No, no, I don't think so. Though what I know about chicken waffles has been called into question recently. I was in Quebec a couple of weeks ago, in Quebec City, and I ordered chicken waffles at a restaurant, and they gave me a plate of chicken waffles covered in caramel sauce. I hated it. I have no
Oh,
idea why A, you would just smother it rather than like, let me dose it. B, why in Quebec you're not giving me maple syrup. Why are you giving
yeah.
me this fucking caramel sauce instead? So I don't know. I mean, I know that there's like a lot of variations on it too. Like there's like the more northern version, which I think is just like gravy and stewed chicken rather than like fried chicken and syrup or whatever. But hot sauce is new to me, though. I mean, like a bit of hot sauce with maple syrup is like a great saucing combo, so I can see it, I can picture it. I think that's not a terrible idea.
Yeah, I could go for like a spicy breading on a fried chicken on top of waffles. I could like get that, but yeah, I don't know, something about like dosing it with the hot sauce, like the vinegar. I don't know.
Mm,
Didn't sound very appealing to me.
mm.
Yeah,
Maybe
another
that's how
great
they do
scene.
it in France, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. What else did you like about this episode?
um all right, so like Bryn choreographing,
Yeah.
that's the pronunciation. uh like a hookup between Jenna and a strange chick in a bar. So I don't know how you felt about this, but I personally felt it like excruciatingly unsexy, almost as much as Jessel and Pavitt pretending to get intimate together
Yeah.
for the cameras. Um, I mean, what did you think about that?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed this scene. What I liked about it was there was like a bit of contrast because, this is a scene that Jenna operates in. Like she's a lesbian, so she
Yeah,
like she's used to the social dynamic here. And to see her be as awkward in this situation as we have seen her when she is in other like social situations with the other women. Just like to see, what is her personality of just being generally uncomfortable and awkward. I thought that that was really, really nice to see, and especially having a comparison with Bryn being there, where this is not her like social scene, but she is just so like comfortable with like people and like wanting to like make flirty connections and really like thriving doing that. I really like that. But the actual execution of it all, the like the brokering of the deal and how awkward
Yeah.
that was definitely really uncomfortable. So I really also like getting that as kind of like the cap on this scene and how it's, very just a rocky scene altogether.
Yeah, it does get to something that does kind of annoy me about Bryn. And you had a great defense of Bryn in the previous episode, but she's just like it can feel like everything about her is so like performance based. That to have like this moment where she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be your wingman. I'm gonna like help you out here," and then like provide specific stage instructions that leave like no breathing room for like the actual like spontaneity and uncertainty that like allows for actual sparks to fly and actual like connection and like sexiness to like exist. Felt like kind of to me like a condemnation of Bryn's whole method of like being very like very performance based. um and yeah, I think that's the one thing I like Bryn too. I'm not saying I don't like her, but like I think that's one thing that gets a little annoying about her whole like flirting with everybody thing. And then when like Aaron tries to call her out and she says, "Yeah, I was obviously fake flirting. I never real flirt." Is that it's like, well, is everything just like performance then? Like, is there like an actual like is there a real Bryn beneath like constantly playing
Mm.
theater all the time?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that that's a good point. I think like what I liked about this was we see her like operating kind of in her element. Like we saw that she can make a a scene that she's able to kind of control a scene and like
Mhm.
do her thing when she's got the tools at her disposal, and like she was effective at fostering some sort of connection. And yeah, it was awkward and didn't like leave enough room for kind of the human element to play. But um, I think that what we have seen from Jenna is that sometimes she does need like, or she could stand to benefit from having someone, kind of lubricate those social connections and like,
Yeah.
um, you know, especially when she's still reeling from a breakup that she, is reluctant to put herself out there because she's so recently been hurt. I think, I don't know. I don't know that it was necessarily Bryn seeing a like a need and addressing it and like going out and doing that, or if it was just her kind of navigating a situation as she navigates every situation by putting things on. I don't no, I don't want to attribute a sort of social mastermind uh, uh, tag to Bryn. Although I think that she is great. I don't think we've seen enough of her like navigating social situations to really label her that way. Um, but yeah, I do think that it was just kind of a nice scene where we saw some pieces come together in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see and just complement each other. It was just it felt like both organic and inorganic at the same time, and I just really loved the texture of this scene.
Sure. And yeah, Bryn and Jenna together are like a great combination and contrast for that reason because they're both very charming, magnetic women, but for like polar opposite reasons, I think, in the sense that Jenna is so charming because she seems like uh very vulnerable and insecure and very like relatable and raw in that way. And Bryn has a very like practiced charmingness that I see as being like very, like I said, very performance based, and that's not pure criticism when I say that either. Like
Yeah.
that's like a great social skill to have, and it comes from, I think, a real place. It comes from the heart too. Like she
Yeah.
this is part of her. This is part of the way she lives and acts. But there's like, yeah, one woman who's really charming because she really knows how to put on a show and constantly perform, and one woman who's charming because she never learned how to do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like I definitely understand why Bryn is like you and other people would criticize Bryn as being very performative. Like I there's definitely like merit to that. But I think that there are others on this cast that are equally as performative. Like I feel like Aaron is similarly very like fake and constructed and just way more of a producer than Bryn is. And we're seeing, kind of this calculated image that Aaron is trying to present. I thought that was evident during the scene, the double date scene with the husbands,
Yeah.
where like Aaron brings up like swinging, and it felt like she's trying to come across as like cool and open, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
really like we saw that also with the prank war stuff where she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just so chill and into pranking," and um, just like what she is telling us is very different from what she is showing us, and she's not a very like effective uh, producer. Like she's not able to manage her image in a way where I think like Bryn is also sort of putting on a character, but she is just like she owns it a little bit more. It just comes a little bit more naturally to her, I guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, sure. I think Aaron's just as constructed too. Aaron's just constructing a very boring personality. That's the main difference. Uh, and it is really funny to me that Abe is like, oh yeah, I'd maybe like get into swinging in like 10 years or something. Like, yeah, this like preternaturally old Grateful Dead fan like just is like, yeah, I'm gonna be an old guy who's like into swinging. Like, yeah, man, you said like you'd be a real hit in like 1978.
Abe the Babe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't wait for him to hit the swinger scene.
I also like when Brit is like, oh, guys hate it when I can quote this week's Economist. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
would fucking hate that too, honestly.
Yeah, anyone is like coming and having a conversation with me and quoting the economist is it's not going to be like, "Oh, wow, that's love to hear more about that."
Yeah.
Uh,
If you tell me you have a subscription to The Economist, that's like already, I'm already done with that. Right there. So,
One thing that I do appreciate about Bryn is that she's kind of going through like a little bit of a like a Peter Pan type thing where she's pursuing all of these things that she was interested in as a child, and like now she's going to be collecting antique books because she was like really into books, and we've seen her do that with chess and like
yeah.
and cars, and just like really exploring this kind of lost childhood that she has. I find that really fun, and it also actually feels like there's some element where she's putting this forward as though it is like something that she is. Um, it part of it seems performative, but it also seems like authentic. Like these are authentic interests that she has had that she's now maybe putting in front of the cameras that she is like a lot more deeply ingrained in this than she has been, but it does seem like these are authentic like points of interest that she's exploring, and I like seeing her like just kind of navigate this and being like, oh, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that, and
Yeah.
um we're seeing that instead of seeing her professional life and seeing her job. It seems like that is what the substitute is, and I appreciate that we're getting something different displayed in terms of a personal story that isn't someone's like job, and seeing you know kind of that we're seeing someone explore like their inner child. That's not something that I can remember really seeing on these shows before.
Yeah, it is like sweet and nice, but it is also, I think, typically exaggerated and performative in a very Bryn way. That instead of like going to the used bookstore and rifling through some paperbacks, she's like, I'm gonna put on an outfit with a ridiculous wide brimmed hat and go look at first editions of Mark Twain books. Like,
Yeah.
it's just take it down a notch, okay?
No, I love it because it is like a, we're seeing a common thing with her, and she has expressed this on a few episodes now, uh when she describes her motivation for how she operates by like flirting, and that's her like go-to personality, where like that is a defense mechanism that she learned as a child. Everything sort of comes back to her childhood, her roots there. um and I think that this is another example of that. Like she's playing like dress up and going to a bookstore to look at like books specifically without pictures so that she can
You're,
like seem more mature.
yeah,
Um, you know, all of this is her like it's like she is in an adult body but being controlled by like a child. Like she's, someone playing the Sims and controlling
right.
her, making her go out and uh, do whatever they think is like something a
Right.
sophisticated woman would do.
Right. Like the things that I would dream of doing once when I'm a rich grown up, she's like actually living those dreams.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's very like admirable to see that. Like I find it, um, I it feels like actually authentic to me.
Yeah, I do like it. It's sweet. Um, I
Uh,
did kind of like Sai in this episode too. I'll just say quickly, just because I just like that she's a little harsh and doesn't really take shit from people, and I do kind
yeah.
of like her being like the most skeptical of Uba's bizarre like healing retreat thing or whatever the fuck that was, and just being like, I'm fine. I don't need healing.
Yeah.
I also respect Jenna kind of like saying the thing that I think a lot of people think but often don't really want to say about people who are always like, I've been seeing a lot of people and realizing that I need to like work on myself. I need to focus more on myself and stuff, and being like, oh, Uba says that she wants to direct love towards herself instead of always to other people. Like, I thought she was always doing that. Like, it always seems like the most selfish people are the ones who are always like, I just need to focus on myself right now.
Yeah.
um, but you always like to see. I always like to see just a bizarre fucking healing retreat in the middle of an episode. It's always a great convention.
Yeah, totally. So I was curious what you thought. Do you think that Jessel and Pavitt had sex on their staycation, or is Jessel just saying that to get people off her back?
If they did, it was like probably really forced and bad. She definitely doesn't give off the vibes of somebody who was like, "Who finally, we got like we had like a really great intimate moment." And I suspect they didn't. Like that's that little scene we get of them like trying to be intimate, where Jessel briefly like kind of play acts as Bryn, as if she's trying to like invoke her as like as like an image of how to perform eroticism. It was just like there was no intimacy whatsoever going on, right? Like just felt like when Jessel straddles him and they're both like, how long do we have to do this for?
Yeah.
Like expressions on their faces. Um very, very, very awkward, I thought. And so yeah, they're just not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they had like a period where they were like really into each other sexually. We do know from earlier that like they were roommates for like years, I think,
Yeah.
before they got married because like Jessel's mom suggested it or something. Like I'm starting to wonder if these people have just like never had like real sexual feelings for each other, and they're just like are eventually like, well, we've been in the same house for long enough that it's time to be married.
Yeah, the thing that struck me about that scene was like, I don't know, it seemed like Jessel was earnestly trying to be playful, and
She was
And
making an effort, yeah.
yeah, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go put the lingerie on, and then she comes out and he like laughs at her, and then
Yeah.
like it's like, oh, that's interesting. That's so brutal. That is so
That is
brutal
so
to like
brutal.
do
Yeah,
that.
it is.
So that makes me feel like nothing happened on this staycation.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
don't buy it. I think like I think that size spot on that Jessel like desperately wants this storyline to be over,
Of
as
course she
she has
does.
like
Why wouldn't
every
she? Like,
every
it makes
right.
her look so bad, and yeah, you're right. Like Jessel was awkward, but she was trying, and yeah, but Pavitt wasn't giving her anything. And Jessel's a hot woman. Like it's like very unfortunate that like this something is just like not working between them. I understand that things happen to like couples with kids that I know nothing about because I've uh never been there. But in some situations, I don't know. I've been told,
Yeah.
but but it's I don't understand why there seems to be like no sexual chemistry whatever between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Jessel was trying to put an end to this storyline before, like she's trying to do it quickly so that she
Yeah,
doesn't end up getting a scene where like the scene that we got between like Aaron and Sai and their husbands at the dinner, where they're like talking about it and joking, being like, "Oh yeah, if I didn't have sex for a year and a half, then I would like be off screwing other women." Like that is the scene that she was trying to like put an end to this story
yeah,
before
of
that
course.
happened. um and that like we got that scene at the same time as this awkward scene. So pretty like it's a very like cringe storyline to be following through
Yeah,
this.
like I started
And
out with, Jessel's just getting her ass cooked in the show.